I want to welcome you to the second season of Couchonomics with Arjun. Join us this season as we go beyond fintech and payments and embark on the journey into the future of financial services, a future which will be shaped by existing and new developments in technology and innovation, including and not limited to the likes of embedded finance, open banking, ESG, various versions of metaverse, decentralized finance, digital currencies, and other trends. On the couch, we're going to have the most influential and progressive-minded founders, executives, investors, regulators, innovators, and industry commentators from across the MENA region and beyond. Join us as we unravel a multitude of layers of the financial services industry and try to learn how technology will continue to impact the world that we live in. Couchonomics with Arjun is proud to collaborate with some of the most respected and innovative names in the world of payments, fintech, and technology. Arjun is a reliable end-to-end payment solution that provides innovation and flexibility to help businesses achieve their ambition faster by turning payments into a strategic growth driver. Get everything you need with 2U, a Saudi-based super app for delivery, mobility, on-demand services, and a lot more. 2U connects you to everything you need to enrich your daily lives by building an ecosystem across its end consumers, merchants, and reps. Visa is a world leader in digital payments with a mission to connect the world through the most innovative, convenient, reliable, and secure payments network to enable individuals, businesses, and economies to thrive. Jidea is a leading fintech and payment solution provider founded in Saudi Arabia, expanding rapidly across the region with established operations in UAE and Egypt. Jidea's vision is to empower merchants with the tools to start, manage, and grow their business. M2P pioneers next-gen fintech through innovative offerings across payments, lending, and banking landscapes. Their comprehensive tech stack powers end-to-end banking services, BNPL, customized credit cards, prepaid cards, and more. ChatGPT.
This week, whenever this episode is aired, ChatGPT broke to the public, and within 5 days, it received 1 million downloads, which it took Netflix 5 months to do, iTunes. You know, it's this extraordinary explosion in people's minds of what this tool is capable of. And this is just OpenAI's GPT-3 model is just one example of many of these types of models. You can see Midjourney and Stable Diffusion for images and DALL-E 2. But that's the first tangible experience that most people have of AI, and it's rightfully blowing people's minds. What GPT-3 and ChatGPT, which is the sort of consumer-facing version of that, and GPT-4 is on the horizon, what that is the prelude of is fully generative, fully customized social media feeds. So there are no more influencers. You write questions for this podcast. I compose answers. We have a conversation that goes out to listeners. Maybe there's some dialogue on LinkedIn or on YouTube, comments after that. But for every single individual interest and for every single listener, they will soonish be able to receive customized generative video, audio, and script and music for the things that they are most interested in, without influencers, without real human beings involved, without there being content editors, and I'm sorry guys, producers associated with it. And that is going to fundamentally transform the media landscape in a profound way that will have financial and employment implications, but more importantly, will have implications on the nature of public dialogue and debate and how we get our information. That is just the tip of the iceberg.
What is so different about generative AI versus all the other forms of AI which have existed for decades, right? We've been using some form of machine learning and AI for quite a long time, right? And the second part to that question is, why this craze, right, which has just engulfed all of us?
So, great question, Arjun. The generative AI differs from artificial intelligence because it has created a whole new creator economy. So artificial intelligence is a field that has been here with us since 1950s. And we know that, for traditional artificial intelligence, it was restricted to a few people who did their PhDs and had to take a lot of studies, etc. And what differs generative AI from traditional artificial intelligence is that now generative AI can generate new content. So previously, in a traditional artificial intelligence could analyze data, it could make interpretations, but it couldn't generate new forms of data. So this is why it's very exciting that with generative AI, we have generation of new content which has never been there before, such as art, you have music, you have videos, etc. It's really exciting because I've seen children, maybe 10-year-olds, they can enjoy generative AI, whether creatively or for studying.
I'm not quite sure they're enjoying it. I think they're using it to finish homework.
Yes, but the artistic types, they're definitely enjoying it as well.
So at what stage does co-creation become replacement?
OpenAI, one of the major companies behind, the likes of ChatGPT, GPT, all these transformer models. So it did a study and said that instead of replacing jobs, it can actually enhance 80% of the jobs that exist today.
If you went back 100, 200, 300 years ago, I think technologies crept up on you at a pace which gave you the option to reinvent, to upskill, to reskill, right? Here it feels like 15 minutes later, right, people in particular industries could be sitting there going, we're really not required because, using these large language models, you can actually infer data through large, copious amounts of data sources into something very succinct. So there's a whole plethora of people who would be doing that as a job, and their jobs are arguably at risk now in a very, very short period of time. And there isn't enough, in my humble opinion, educational material out there to retrain, reskill, and upskill these individuals so that they can become co-creators. But in any case, I just want to make that point. I think this was just me getting it off my chest, because I do believe that, yes, in the longer period of time, all these new technologies will generate new roles, right? Without doubt. But I think in a short term, they actually could be very painful.
I actually disagree politely.
No, please.
Yes, because all these, in the short term, they actually enhance jobs. There's a generative AI application for so many things now. So that enhances your productivity to a level that you actually have more time to do the stuff that is more important. And that includes a lot of leftover time to upskill.
We're all going crazy on AI these days, right? Has kind of, specifically AI, it's kind of crept up very quickly, right? It's been around for a decade. We've been talking AI in financial services for at least a decade, at least I know that. But in the last 6 months, it's pretty much every day, right? Now, question for you is, what do we do? And I'm actually asking that question to myself right now. What do I need to do from my own job's perspective to kind of come up the curve and stay with this seismic shift? Because this is not for the next generation or my kids' generation. It's actually going to impact me, and I'm not that old. And I'll say one final thing before I pass it on. We keep hearing that, AI will not replace human beings. It will be human beings using AI who will replace human beings not using AI. My answer to that is, I'm sorry, that's BS. AI will replace human beings, right? What do I do from not getting replaced?
Wow. 20 years ago, when we entered the finance industry, it was quite linear. You want to get into a job in finance, you have a finance degree, and then it's probably predictable. Today, if you want to join the finance industry or the fintech industry, people are looking at totally different type of skills.
Yeah, and even the banks, right?
And even the banks,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And my view is that today, if you don't learn AI, I think it would be really, really hard for anyone to get a great job in finance. You need to understand about the use of AI, not necessarily learning about how to build it, but how to use it. That's why we spend a lot of time working with people, global head of innovation or data chief officer in AI, to look at what are the applications if you were in asset management, wealth management, risk management, all the verticals in banks. How does it really apply?
Yeah.
How does it apply? Because you don't want to learn just AI and sticks in your brain, but how do I really apply to your job? That's why we spend a huge amount of time getting the people involved in AI to teach, so that in every verticals of the banks, we launch a program on that. So it was really applied. It's like you have this Nespresso machine and you have the old way of doing coffee with the powder and you. Today, this machine is here. You press the button and it gives you the same results. So today, AI is there. And AI will augment your job. You'll get the same result, but how do you use it? I think it's the right moment to actually learn what works, what doesn't work from the company building AI, blockchain, digital asset, but also the banks.
With all the new craze with AI and so on and so forth coming into the frame, that sort of upskilling, reskilling concern becomes bigger, right? So just from a Singapore perspective, when did the journey actually start? What are the big inventions you guys have made?
It all started from day one. We had this strong belief there are 3 ways to do it. You have to build your capacity, you have to enhance your capabilities, and you have to have capital behind it. I would rather argue saying that large part of workforce, which was part of the financial sector, were not necessarily digitally native. So we had to put a lot of effort in building multiple programs so that the existing workforce are upskilled to be able to deal with this new expectation, the new consumer expectations. It has been part of a program throughout 365 days for last 4-5 years. As I said, we are obsessed with the idea that upskilling, reskilling is a key to the success of a center in the future.
Every friend I had who was a Web3 expert 3 months ago is now an AI expert. And more specifically, a generative AI, and more specifically, a ChatGPT expert.
Of course.
I personally don't think it's an either or. I want to hear sort of your view in terms of why we are seeing this sudden shift in the way people are positioning themselves. Yeah. I don't see the need to, but people have chosen to. And where do you see those points of intersection?
I don't think that anyone has real, hard, unrefutable knowledge in this space. It's not like, hey, you understand the hard.
There's no intellectual monopoly on the topic.
Not
yet.
at all.
Yeah, I
not
agree
at
with
all.
you.
AI though, AI has been out there since the 50s. I could see a world even where artificial intelligence starts writing smart contracts for us, right? We define the use cases, the artificial intelligence defines the smart contract, and suddenly the entire access to blockchain is solved, and we've solved the talent issue as well. I think in a perfect world, this entire landscape of emerging technologies will exist in a concerted effort. Let's say your self-driving car, which is an IoT device, is governed by some form of artificial intelligence, some form of automation, is connected from a value point of view every time you pass SALIC to your blockchain wallet, and so goes the story. I think it's a concerted effort or it's a concert of emerging technologies in the future.
Right. Which technology trends really interest you?
At a personal level, I am completely obsessed with AI.
Right.
So I think that will change financial services as we know it, because it will change retailing. As I was dreaming about how I think things will work a few years from now, I think that we will not go to shops online or offline, and instead we'll ask some personal assistant, see this picture or whatever. Remember Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible 6? I'd like the bomber jacket that he wore, and I'd like it from an eco-friendly company with zero hassle return. I like to spend $500 to $600, but if it's a little more, all right, where do I go? And there's the answers. And one step further is do it in my shopping basket and what have you. Because it's so powerful, and we ain't seen nothing yet. Just today, I was at that investor conference where a company called Veritone. I'd not heard of them from America, was presenting what all they have done.
Yes.
They've digitized all the sports archives in America, whereby for thousands of historic NBA games, you can say, show me what Michael Jordan did in the championship game in 19 whatever, and tell me what shoes he was wearing, or where do I buy the memorabilia shirt and what have you. And it's early days. So I think that is going to be something that has a very big impact on payments as well, in a way that I can't quite oversee. The obvious applications are fraud detection and what have you, but it will change the
pricing,
payment experience.
personalization, yeah.
So I think that's a big one, and it's probably I think if I had to put money on it, it will make the so-called smartphone revolution look like a relatively small thing. So who knows.
What's your take on AI payments? Because there are tremendous use cases, right? Me being a payments person myself, I can see. How do you see it in its initial avatars? How do you think it's going to kind of come into the ecosystem?
I think it's already happening initially with payments, primarily in risk, I would say.
Yeah. Okay.
Risk and behavioral attribute of transaction. What is happening there is how we can perform transactions in a protective manner. That's where AI is going to speed up a lot, and it's already starting at the moment. What we believe that's the entry point, but where it's going to reach, I think it's a question like where is the internet going to go in the 90s when that question was given back then. I think AI is truly an innovation that will speed up things in a manner that is really hard to predict at the moment.
I think, businesses will need to get smarter. True. I do think that there is an element that the way our businesses will look in terms of personnel will change.
Yeah.
And it'll change faster than we can. And then that brings another question saying, do we have access to that sort of talent?
True.
Right. And if we don't have that access to that talent, means, well, we better start upskilling and reskilling the people that we have.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can just sit back and say that, there's a magic button out there we'll press. Well, maybe there is a magic button, but I haven't seen one that'll solve that. So I find this both fascinating, but at the same time worrying.
There is one thing I would like to
please
put a comment there on how I would compare AI or where it's going, how it's going to be used versus something that we're using today. Navigation that you're using today with driving or going from one place to another. We used to use maps. Yeah. Now we rely on software that tells us where to go.
Yeah.
I think what's going to happen and what's tricky with AI is it's going to be the same thing. Today there are people that can use such software for navigation, but they can move without it. That's fine. But there's a huge population that can't.
Yep.
That's what scares me with AI.
I totally agree. I think the separation between the have and have-nots arguably becomes even greater.
Yeah.
So yet to be proven whether AI is an inclusive tool and whether it will be used for inclusion or not. Let's talk about generative AI and financial services, right? From a generative AI perspective, right? What use cases are you seeing out there? What examples are you seeing out there?
So I personally think, there are so many industries that are going to be disrupted by generative AI. And that can be used very positively. There's a thing called structured disruption, that with proper strategy and foresight, you can actually use that as an advantage and leap forward in ways which you could not before these advents of technology such as generative AI. So there's a huge opportunity, and there are a lot of people who are in the financial services utilizing this. So for example, let's start from the very basics. Even with ChatGPT, you have your own personal financial advisor. Mm-hmm. There's a generative AI app called Parthian AI. And what it does is that it has been trained to provide financial advice. So whether it's regarding your mortgage, whether it's regarding something like savings, even capital management, etc., it can help. You just provide it with the questions, and it can help with that. And in specifically with generative AI, the GANs, which are generative adversarial networks, are very helpful. So without going into the technicalities, they can be used to create synthetic data. And this synthetic data, without compromising the privacy, etc., of accounts, can be used to train models and detect fraud, can be used to detect anomalies. That is being used by, for example, Uber in their financial services to detect anomalies and prevent fraud. And it's also being used by Google for even network protection of their financial services. And I would say that because generative AI models tend to hallucinate, you shouldn't always, and hallucinate, for those who don't know, they tend to sometimes advise in a way which seems very believable, but it's actually a made up fact. So it's always good to double check as well. Don't go blindly with what's being told.
And you raised one of my biggest concern,
Yes.
which is hallucination of the generative AI responses, right? Financial services or fintech is a very precise industry, if I may say, right? Invariably, there's a right and a wrong answer, right? Because it's number driven.
It's not all, a field of roses. There are always good aspects, and then there are things which you need to be worked upon. So you should never blindly, accept everything. You should always do your own research. However, it will definitely enhance productivity, and models such as Bloomberg's GPT can definitely enhance the financial sector.
Recently, I think you announced something that you were doing with AI, right? Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about it.
So because we're a conversational platform,
yeah,
and we're inviting all of the other people to copy this, we get to launch conversationally. 3 weeks ago, the world started realizing that everything should become conversational AI now, and everything. This is what we've been talking about, since a few years ago. I think the world is moving in a very conversational direction, not for anything, Arjun, but because it's the easiest. It's the organic way of using a handheld, right? Since Nokia, since the BlackBerry, people have been used to running in the conversation, and now this is what's happening. So we've launched our GPT, our in-house GPT, and it's the world's first executional GPT.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
If you look at GPT right now, or if you look at computer intelligence or AI in general, so you have multiple layers of intelligence, but when you look at it, most of the intelligence that you have right now is informational intelligence. And its information is not localized. It can give you generic information, right? What we wanted to do is something that is executional, that can carry a task.
Okay.
You say, buy water, it buys water. It says, deliver this to my house. It carries on the tasks needed to deliver this to your house. Send money, remit money, it remits money. Call X, call Y, it does that for you. And this is what we feel eventually the user experience is going to look like. It's prompts and commands that are happening on top of generative AI. So as a merchant, if you think about it, I think the era of you trying to look for an item is almost done. You're just going to prompt the intelligence to find you something, and it will find and be able to execute. And eventually the intelligence will learn that Arjun drinks this water, he likes this size, and we know his address. So the minute you say buy water, you just see a deduction on your card, you go home and you find that water delivered to your house. The minute you say renew my ID, it renews your ID. The minute you say, get me a new passport, gets you a new passport. And that's execution. It does a task for you.
When it comes to AI, I think it's definitely overhyped, but there is a sense of what the products of AI could be utilized in our space. It's basically how to, again, enhance the user experience. I think the large language models could help in the interaction with the customers, whether on the support level, in knowledge-based communication, as well as in some of the advisory services that we can come up with, like in the advisory on investments, for example, advisory on potential e-commerce interactions, on which products could better fit for me, and so on. So we are researching some concepts around this when it comes to Yalla Invest and the Yalla Mall spaces, which we will be releasing soon. I mean, in the next release, there is an actual AI implementation in one of our use cases.
So I haven't been in Tinkoff for a year in Russia, so I really don't know. But I can tell you that, the direction of travel, which is really quite interesting. So basically, once you get all these different services in the app, it's actually becomes quite cluttered. There's too many things on the screen. There's too many screens. How do you navigate? And it's becoming a problem. And this is a fantastic use case for AI in the super app. So what do you do with the AI? Basically, you build up a profile based on the preferences and the behavior of the customer. And you have targeted content.
Exactly.
At the right time, delivered in the right way.
Exactly.
Very this isn't push messaging, this I'm talking about. This is the actual screen.
Your user interface is determined by
it's
who
customized
you are.
to that particular individual unit. And it's amazing. So you take the boring hygiene stuff, regular payments, transfers to your mum, bill payments, whatever, into the background and automate it in effect. You can do it through prompts, and you take the interesting endorphin-producing stuff into the foreground, which really gets people turned on. Yeah. And that's where Tinkoff is traveling now.
What are the challenges?
Oof. Lots of challenge here and there.
Pick your top 2 or 3.
I think ultimately the challenges with this role always is that when you're speaking to industry, who is industry? What is industry? It's not a person. It's not... it's not like I can talk to ChatGPT and be like, ChatGPT, you who scours the web, be the voice of industry for me.
Most people don't know how to figure the implications of this, right? As an I can't sit down here and size out the impact of ChatGPT and similar types of tools on the financial services sector. And there are some very profound ones, including data privacy, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you guys stay ahead of the curve?
At this point, I don't know who's ahead of the curve. I think we're all just hanging on. We're all hanging on for dear life. All
question.
Of us.
How do you actually stay on the end of the curve?
But I think this is true for everyone. Like you said, we're all just holding on, and there's so much happening in different parts and different sections of the world, and it just keeps popping up, and we're like, oh, kind of like whack-a-mole. Oh no, this popped up. Let's try to figure out what's happening. I think what we do a lot is we work a lot internationally, because normally if you have 18 regulators or you have 25 regulators or so, eventually one will be a little bit stronger in one field than the other, because based on their specific market specificity. So that's one of our first go-tos. Speak to our peers to see if they have any concerns. And then ultimately, it's always a question of risk management. So how dangerous, quote unquote dangerous, could something be? And then from there, that sort of prioritizes how quickly we need to upskill.